This is a public hearing at 7:35, 7:37. Oh, excuse me. Do we need a motion to open the public hearing for 7:35, 7:37 Columbia Street site plan application from 735 Columbia Street? That is a change from our agenda. I'm sorry, I picked up Kulaba, but they have changed the LLC name to 735 Columbia Street. They are proposing to convert an existing auto service center into a bar, restaurant, and brewery with an event space. So do I have a motion to open the public hearing, reopen the public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you, John. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Clark. Any discussion before we open the public hearing?
I just want to make a comment. They were very generous in offering time for us to visit the site. I visited with them and they were great at showing around and offering, Q&A sort of on site, obviously not to replace what we're doing here, but I just want to thank them for that opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you, Clark. All right, so we have a motion accepted. Okay, let's go. Christina, are you taking?
We need all in favor.
Oh, sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Victoria. Christina, on you go. Are you taking us through this tonight?
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
So may I share my screen?
Yes, please.
All right. Can you all see the screen?
Sure can. Thank you.
What I thought we would do is run through some of the questions that came up last time and how we responded to that. There was a question about occupancy count, including outdoor seating. So we went ahead and updated that. I'll zoom in here so we can see it on the drawing. Oops. So we added a total of 40 seats in the garden area for a total of 154 occupants in the bar restaurant portion of the project, which we're calling the tap room. And then the occupancy in the brewery remains the same at 25 occupants based upon the square footage. There was a comment about the dumpsters. We did reach out to Carmen Barbado, local dumpster company in town. And based on that conversation, we confirmed that this location is feasible. We did switch the size of the dumpsters that we're planning to use to smaller units, which would help the garbage workers in the operation. But essentially the garbage truck would back in from the street and then the garbage would be removed from the dumpster enclosure. We added an additional site plan with an expanded view to show additional context, the surrounding streets, as well as potential layout for the outdoor seating area, which is, I'll zoom in on that so you guys can see it better. So essentially what we're looking to do here is just have a number of Adirondack, or outdoor style chairs and some different seating groupings around this rear courtyard. Also showing the truck turning radius as it would back into this driveway here. And then I'm going to jump to some additional information on the curb cuts. So the curb cut, as we've proposed it, will remain untouched. And this existing planting bed is actually, you can see it in these photos, it's protruding into the actual driveway opening. So what we're proposing in reshaping this planting bed will actually make entry to the site more accessible. It's
And
kind of
Christina, if I could just add for the board's sake and the public right now, we did hear back from state DOT and they do not need to approve this or disapprove this curb cut. They're leaving it up to Hudson because it's considered a city street because it's within the within city limits.
Yes, thank you. We are also included in our package specifications for the light fixtures that we're proposing. We have, you know, a gooseneck fixture, which would be used on the front of the building. We have a shielded landscape light, a small light, low voltage, which would be used in the landscape beds. And then we have a wall sconce, which is used around the rear of the building, and that's all denoted on the lighting plan. And then additionally, we submitted a letter from our engineer that essentially states that we're reducing the impervious areas, the amount of asphalt. And we submitted a letter describing the hours of operation from the owners. So essentially, this states that initially the hours are expected to be Thursday through Sunday. Thursday, 12 noon to 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday, 12 noon to 10 p.m. and Sunday, 12 noon to 6 p.m. And then as the business grows, potentially expanding the operation to 7 days a week. And of course, as with any business, the hours would be driven by customer demand, but approximately Monday through Thursday, noon through 7 p.m., Friday and Saturday, noon through 11 p.m., and then Sunday, noon through 8 p.m. The brewery would be operating during business hours, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and would have, you know, standard deliveries, distribution, and staff on site during that time. So the property may host live music at times, but you know, with you know, compliance with the town's noise ordinance. They would not have any outdoor amplified music between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. Are there any additional questions or comments?
Christina, thank you. At the last meeting, I recall we were talking about remediation studies that were conducted and including those with the application.
Yes.
Were you able to provide those? Actually, I could have missed that, but
yeah, we did actually include a rather lengthy 366 page document for you to review, which was a property review prepared by Taconic Engineering, and that gets into you know, some of the history of the site, and there were no environmental concerns that were noted in that study.
Thank you.
So is that officially a phase 1 study that you did, or is that a
that is not an official phase 1, no.
Okay.
Members of the public, you are free to ask questions about this application. if you would let me know by raising your hand, I suppose is the easiest. All right, am I correct in thinking that no members of the public wish to speak or ask questions? All right, board, do you all have any more questions for Christina? Okay, hearing none. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing tonight? Typically, board, what we do is we extend the public comment period for an additional 10 days for any written comments. So we can entertain that motion as well. Christina, you can stop sharing your screen now. All right, board, do I have a motion to close the public hearing, please? With the extension, with the 10-day suggested extension.
I put the motion forward.
Teresa, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Any discussion? Okay.
Actually, Betsy, I had a question just regarding, I know they mentioned 11 o'clock cutoff time for outdoor music.
Mhm.
Is there a decibel level that they could commit to, or is there a city, maybe I'm showing my ignorance here, but is there a city code that protects neighbors in terms of noise and decibel levels that they have to adhere to?
I think so.
I believe so. I'll check right now. There's a noise law in chapter 210 of the city code.
Yeah.
I will tell you, it's not really being actively enforced at the moment, unfortunately.
That's true.
So unreasonable noise is prohibited between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. And then, it goes, the code has all sorts of language about what's unreasonable, et cetera. So they would have to comply with the noise law.
But it's pretty ambiguous.
No, there's decibel limits.
Oh, decibel limits, okay.
So, I mean, between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. in a commercial district, the base level is 55 dBA. I mean, right now, I don't have any context to provide to you about what's 55 dBA, but there is a code and they have to comply with it.
Okay.
If that code needs tweaking, that's something for the Common Council.
Right, of course. Okay, thank you.
I know we've looked at other applications and they have agreed to no amplified music after 10 p.m., which is certainly a condition we could impose, board, if you feel better about that.
Okay.
And I would add that the applicant plans to be very reasonable with the noise, and outdoor music would not be frequent.
All right, so I need a motion, please, with any conditions you wish to impose.
In the chat, a member of the public was asking how to raise their hand. So I don't think we have a comment that someone wants to make before we close the hearing.
Is this Donna?
Hello, this is Donna. I don't have a comment or question on this particular item, but I was wondering for future items, how do we raise our hand? I don't see a hand icon at the bottom of the screen, just the chat function.
Donna, I'm surprised by that as well. I thought there was a little hand icon down here. And Shahim, do you know, can you help us with that?
There should be.
Some of us do see the hand icon, but some of us don't.
Yeah.
Are you on a computer or are you on your phone?
I'm on my computer.
As am I, Shahim.
I have my hand icon down here.
Excuse me, hello.
Yes.
This is Ronald Kopnicki. If you open the participants list, there is a raise hand command at the bottom of the list. So if you don't see it at the bottom of the screen, If you make the participants panel appear by clicking on participants, which is at the bottom of the screen, at the bottom of that panel, there's a raise hand link you can click on.
I do see that. Thank you so much. This is
Well,
Donna.
thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And
Okay, so board, back to a motion. Does someone want to make a motion regarding this application?
I think Teresa made a motion and I second.
And Teresa, can you specify what your motion is? I'm sorry if I missed it.
it was to close the hearing with a 10-day written comment period.
Okay. And do we want to add any conditions?
Well, right now you're just closing the hearing. We're not.
Oh,
you're not
sorry. Okay, so
Did
board,
vote?
I will take a vote. John, Cody,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
Stephen,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Betsy, yes. Okay, we will close the public hearing on this and with an extended 10-day written comment period. Christina, if I receive any comments from the public, I will forward them to you immediately and to the board. Failing any comments coming in, Victoria, what is our procedure for site plan approval for this?
So I could draft a resolution to approve it at your next meeting if you wanted to put it on the agenda for that one in October, or it would be on the agenda in November.
Okay. Would you please draft that resolution? We can assume, let's see in the next 10 days, if we receive a number of comments, we may have to, we may need to do a little tweaking before I put it on the agenda for October 27th.
Okay.
Okay.
But yes, a resolution, please, would be great.
Is there any way the board would consider an approval tonight?
Our policy has generally been, Christina, with these that we wait until this 10-day period expires before we approve, just do a site plan approval, just to ensure that the public has adequate time to respond.
Well, we did have the public hearing open since the last meeting last month, so it's already been open, you know, more than a month.
Well,
I hear you, but
Last meeting you started by opening the public hearing.
if the board is going to have a policy, though, you really should treat everyone the same.
yeah. I agree.
Otherwise, you know, everyone's going to ask for an exception.
So, Christina, what I can tell you is that we do have a meeting scheduled for October 27th, which would accommodate the 10-day written period for comments. And we could add you to the agenda barring any major concerns. Would that satisfy you?
And Paul, what do you think?
I think that's okay. Only 2 weeks away. We can cope with that.
Okay, thank you for, that's great. I will send you a link to that meeting. Okay, thank you all. So moving on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Betsy, while you go to the next one, I think if you press *9, if you're on the phone, that will raise the hand for anyone who wants to speak, calling in from a telephone.
Great, thank
Just
you.
so anyone who's on the phone knows that.
Excellent. Okay. So before we continue, the next item on our agenda is the continuation of our public hearing on 175 South Front Street, a conditional use permit application and site plans from A. Colarusso and Son for road improvements and commercial dock operations. Before we continue the public hearing on this, there is some business, board, that we need to take care of. I am in receipt of a letter dated September 25th, 2020 from attorney John Privatera of Whiteman, Osterman, and Hanna, John, is counsel to A. Colarusso and Son. The letter charges 2 of our planning board members with conflict of interest and or bias as it relates to the Colarusso matter before us now. In light of this, I would like to ask each of you to please state whether or not you have a conflict of interest or a particular bias that would prevent you from considering the Colarusso site plan application. I'll begin by affirming that I personally have no bias or conflict of interest that would prevent me from a fair, unbiased review of the A. Colarusso applications before us. John Cody.
I have no bias or conflict in any way with the project, so.
Thank you. Teresa Joyner.
I have no bias or conflict of interest with the Colarusso project that's in front of us as we do our due diligence.
Was Laura Margolis able to join us yet? Okay. Oh, Larry Bound, I see you. Welcome, Larry. Would you like to comment?
Unmute yourself.
Larry, you're still muted.
Hello?
There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Sorry about that. Betsy, I have a brief statement that I'd like to read into the record. Is that permissible?
It certainly is. Please go ahead.
Okay. This statement addresses a purported conflict of interest I might have as a member of the planning board in reviewing matters in the core Riverfront District, particularly the current applications before the board submitted by A. Colarusso and Son, given my participation in local civic affairs prior to serving on the board. I have no monetary stake in any matter currently before the board. Rather, the issue here seems to be whether I might be predisposed to judging a matter currently under review by our board and whether my bias might be unfairly tainting our evaluation of applications before us. The source of such concerns seems to stem from my past association with the local advocacy group Our Hudson Waterfront prior to joining the planning board. In the summer of 2019, I attended 3 or 4 of their meetings. I signed their petition and I volunteered one Saturday at the farmers market to gather more signatures. Additionally, in 2019, I spoke at a pair of public hearings regarding the board's review of the ACS applications. These activities were all intended to encourage the planning board to conduct its review of the ACS application fairly, transparently, and rigorously. Then, and frankly since, I have encouraged the board to follow proper procedures and protocols. Prior to joining the board and since, I have never advocated for or against a specific outcome regarding any application before the board, but have instead admonished the board and its former chair for what I considered shortcomings in their evaluation and consideration of matters under review. Like many engaged citizens in Hudson, I have had thoughts and opinions regarding proposed developments along our shoreline. I certainly have a desire to see mixed-use, publicly accessible projects. But I also hold dear the rights of private property owners to do with their land as they see fit, so long as those actions comport with the law. These professional judgments and personal values do not prohibit the reasoned evaluation of any applications currently under review by the board. If I thought I were incapable of being open-minded and fair, I would not have joined this board. I certainly would not have sworn the oath I took on January 9th of this year to faithfully discharge my duties as a member of the planning board. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Steve Stein?
I have no conflict of interest or any bias regarding this application, and no issue with giving it a fair review.
Thank you. Laura, I see you've been able to join us. I brought the board up to date on the fact that I have received a letter from John Privatera of Whiteman, Osterman, and Hannah, counsel to Colarusso, charging 2 of our planning board members with a conflict of interest and or bias as it relates to the Colarusso matter. So what I'm asking the board is to let us know whether or not you have any bias or conflict of interest that would prevent you from a fair and unbiased review of the Colarusso applications.
Okay.
So I have no bias or conflict of interest regarding the application.
Thank you. And Clark Wayman.
Sorry to Larry, I have a statement, Betsy, if that's okay to make a brief statement.
Go ahead.
It's actually a summary of a letter I sent for record to Betsy as well, so I don't want to review that whole letter, but it's some major points from that letter. I believe my tough questioning and analysis of Colorusso documentation and insistence that they comply with both seeker law and formal planning board requests and related matters have been consistent from the start. This isn't biased, but simply doing our job as a planning board member. In my nearly 4 years on the board, I have made no statement against Colorusso or advocated for or determined a specific outcome. I've repeatedly worked diligently towards adhering to a fair, open process in accordance with seeker law. Had I not done so, I would have been remiss in my duties as a planning board member. Allegations of essentially guilt by association, which is in the Privateer letter, due to my partner's former activities with our Hudson waterfront, are ridiculous and unfounded. My views are my own, and I'm committed to full and open review process. She is, of course, entitled to her own opinions. I'll go on record as calling out the
Clark, we lost you there. You'll go on record how?
Strong opinions is indirectly attacked, and some I find this extremely objectionable or impropriety or bias. Waterfront prior to the release of a joint statement formally opposing the Colorusso dock project. And I believe frivolous allegations can be made against any planning board member who has pressed Colorusso for compliance with seeker, requests for information, and asked tough questions or expressed skepticism at inadequate responses. And finally, I just want to make the statement that Mayor Johnson is due huge credit as he appointed a majority of this board. And he deserves credit for assembling an active, smart, well-informed, and cohesive group. And as everyone knows, this is an extremely complex situation, and it is a credit to all planning board members who have put in an immense amount of work to understand the project, governing state and local law, and work towards an outcome in compliance with seeker and local zoning code.
Thank you, Clark. Okay, so now we can reopen our public hearing on 175 South Front Street, conditional use permit applications and site plans for May Colorusso and Son for road improvements and commercial dock operations.
Want to make a motion to reopen?
Do I have a motion to reopen?
I move that we reopen.
Was that Larry?
Yes.
Thank you, Larry. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, John. Any discussion before we get going? Okay.
All aye.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Please.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing has reopened. Any statements from the, or questions from the board or the applicant before we open this to the public? Okay, public, you are free to ask your questions. I am looking for raised hands.
DBK just raised her hand.
Okay, DBK, could you identify yourself for us, please?
Yeah, David Koenigsberg.
Oh, hi, David.
I just realized that I don't have my full name on that. I'll have to remedy that. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I do have a quick statement I want to make as a resident of the First Ward. Again, I want to argue for a positive deck here that will trigger a full review of this entire project, both the two-lane truckway and improvements at the dock. These should be considered together as one development. I think this gives the board an opportunity to finally explore the questions that have never been asked about how this use impacts the city, particularly if that use expands, how it impacts.
Yep.
Peter, mute.
Yep.
Peter, would you please mute your yourself, Peter Young? Go ahead, David.
I take back my time. This gives the board an opportunity to finally explore the questions that have not been asked about how this use impacts the city, particularly if that use expands, how it impacts our quality of life, our environment, and particularly our present and future economy. The two impact reviews done so far by Greenport and Columbia County planning boards have concerned themselves largely with the roadway. Neither has seriously addressed impacts on the city other than the site of reduction in gravel trucks in the 2nd and 4th wards. Gravel trucks, as we now know, are only a small percentage of the overall truck traffic that passes through town. This means that even if gravel trucks are reduced, a far greater number of trucks remain. The truck problem is something we believe has to be addressed in its entirety by fighting to move the truck routes out of town to highways that are built to handle the traffic. It should not require sacrificing the vast potential of our waterfront and doing it without solving the problem of trucks. The focus here, I think, should be whether the goals of this application help or harm the city. Will they improve the quality of life for residents and visitors? Will they advance public access and recreational enjoyment? Will they contribute to a vibrant mixed-use community that generates jobs and career opportunities and that increases commerce throughout the city as an integral part of the whole city? I think they won't, but that's up to you to explore. I also want to caution about the claim made in various documents that increased volume on the road and at the dock, in quotes, it's not anticipated. Hold on for a second. I find this hard to believe since the 2-lane truckway will enable exactly that kind of expansion, and since the company has declared the city has no right to regulate its volume, and since market demand, in quotes, is expressed as a reason the company would continue to use city streets, even with the truckway in place. So what is that about if not the prospect of increased volume and impacts? So again, it's time for an oversight body, and what better one than this one to finally review this puzzle and the potential downsides for the city of Hudson and our environment and our economy and our ability to grow the economy further in ways that benefit the people of this city, as well as the county as a whole. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Donna Streitz, you have your hand up.
Hi, everyone.
Good evening, Donna.
This is Donna Streitz. I'm a homeowner in the 1st Ward. And I have a prepared statement, which is an excerpt from a letter that our Hudson Waterfront sent to the board recently on September 28th. The recent Columbia County Planning Board support letters, like documents submitted by the applicant, assume the company has, quote unquote, no expansion or future plans contemplated in its waterfront operations. We feel that it's wise for the Hudson Planning Board to look at this claim skeptically. We believe the planned 2-lane industrial highway creates the capacity for much greater truck volume and believe potential environmental, safety, and economic problems of rising volume must be weighed. As we have stated previously, the company has made no commitment to limiting its volume on the dock, and in fact has only expressed defiance, arguing that Hudson has no right to regulate the volume of its business operations. It's worth noting that in the most recent Creighton Manning truck study, volume to the dock increased almost 3-fold from over 2,700 truckloads in 2015 to almost 7,600 last year, and that each truckload requires 2 trips per load. This means that gravel trucks ran between the mine and dock over 5,400 times in 2015 and over 15,000 times last year. In addition, the recent truck study states that, quote unquote, days hauled is typically less than half the maximum potential, as deliveries to the dock do not happen every day. As such, we have huge concerns that an expanded haul road will enable Colarusso to maximize its truck volume to at least double that of its 2019 volume, even with a reduced work schedule that excludes weekends and holidays. In fact, if Colarusso operated at its peak load of 132 loads or 264 trips per day for the 250 maximum available work days in a year, potential volume could be upwards of 33,000 loads or 66,000 trips per year. What's to stop Colarusso or another company, should they sell to a multinational firm, from increasing its haul roads to the maximum potential at the city's expense? We strongly support a positive deck decision by the Hudson Planning Board to enable a thorough evaluation of the Colarusso proposals. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Donna. Peter Young.
Hello, I apologize for the tech glitch earlier. I'm a geezer. I'm not built for the Zoom era. So I'm proposing that the board take kind of a fresh look at this thing because it is a complex review with 2 municipalities, various involved agencies, SECRA, Hudson waterfront zoning. It's an administrative nightmare, and it's easy to lose sight of the basics. So let's imagine that we're sitting around at a Tuesday night planning board meeting, and an applicant comes before us and says, we've got a quarry in Greenport, and we'd like a brand new intersection on Route 9, one of the principal arteries into Hudson. Our 60-foot gravel trucks would cross at right angles to oncoming traffic on that busy route. Our trucks would then proceed through the span of land that sits between 9 and 9G in immediate proximity to protected conservation land. Then we seek another right angle crossing at Route 9G at the base of a long hill where local police often have a radar trap because traffic is speeding as it comes downhill. Then we want a new 2-lane industrial highway through South Bay, an important wetland that has been designated as a significant wildlife habitat by New York Department of State. After exiting South Bay, we would turn north and proceed immediately past the front door of Basilica, a popular and very busy cultural venue that is on track for National Historic Register status. Our trucks would then reach the Broad Street rail crossing, which is immediately opposite the site where $40 to $60 million of new development is scheduled to happen as a consequence of the DRI grant from New York State. The historic Hudson train station is the 3rd busiest in the state, with 28 trains passing through daily. We intend to intermingle 284 heavy truck crossings with that large volume of train traffic. When a train is passing by, our trucks would be waiting and idling on either side of the rails. Our trucks would pass within feet of the historic Dunn building, which is slated for major renovation, and also in immediate proximity to the popular Henry Hudson Waterfront Park. Our trucks would drop their load at the dock where there are just 2 or 3 employees and no employment for local residents. Our waterfront operation would provide nothing new in the way of job opportunities and no enhanced revenue for the city of Hudson. In addition, we have steadfastly maintained that the city has no authority to regulate the upper limit of our volume. We also want to retain the right to use the Columbia Street route at our discretion. When you look at it fresh like that, this proposition is bonkers. And I hope the planning board will take the time to review this as if it was a new and fresh proposition. It's a de novo review or an ab initio review, where those are the Latin terms. And I think when you view it that way, you'll have a very, very different view of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. Peg Patterson.
I'm trying.
We hear you.
Okay, here I go. Peg Patterson. I'm a resident of Hudson, and I've been following this application for, I can't believe it, 3 years. And I've never understood one thing. That is, what does enabling gravel loading on our waterfront have to do with the city's economic life and future? What does it mean in terms of jobs and careers for our young people? How does it create synergies with the town's growing business community? How does it impact new businesses cropping up at the waterfront? And how does it encourage investments being made to create a vibrant waterfront district? None of this has been previously seriously reviewed, whether by Greenport Planning Board or the Columbia County Planning Board. This board, the Planning Board of the City of Hudson, has that opportunity and needs to use it. As a business owner and member of the Hudson Business Coalition, I fully support actions that, 1, protect recreational use of the waterfront for the community and visitors, and 2, contribute to the creation of a thriving downtown business district that becomes part of the city as a whole, that creates jobs and careers for our young people and people moving into town and opportunities for emerging entrepreneurs who are the lifeblood of our economic future. As far as I can tell, this proposal promises to do none of these. Aside from providing little in the way of new employment to our city, the highly mechanized operation at the dock, particularly if it expands, may threaten the viability of businesses that are already there, as well as the value of the $10 million DRI initiative, which is designed to attract another $60 million in private investment. Will people still want to invest in our waterfront amid rising truck traffic, dust, noise, and dangers, making it far less attractive to businesses and threatening what little waterfront space our people have? I want to add that it isn't just about impacts on Hudson. Columbia County's prosperity is driven in large part by the resurgence of Hudson. We are a big part of the creative economy, a primary economic driver in the county, a big reason people come here. The more dynamic and energized the city becomes, the more the benefits accrue to our county. A vibrant waterfront district is key to economic vitality. So from this perspective, as well as the environmental one, I urge the board to make a positive declaration so that we can have an examination of the pros and cons. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Peg. Leslie Birtle.
Hi, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, my name is Leslie Pirtle and I'm a homeowner in the First Ward. I would like to voice strong concern regarding Colarusso gravel trucks and traffic safety in and around the Broad Street crossing and Hudson Amtrak station. Our station is the third busiest station on the Amtrak train line in New York State, with 28 trains stopping or passing through Hudson daily. 13 passenger trains travel northbound, 13 trains travel southbound, and 2 freight trains cross the tracks at this location. The combination of train, truck, and pedestrian traffic at the crossing presents a dangerous condition where large gravel trucks cross the train tracks at Broad Street as potentially often as 284 times per day, intersecting with 28 train trips a day. Regular car traffic and pedestrian traffic exists within this mix as well. It seems like an accident waiting to happen. Hudson is a vibrant, creative community drawing many people to the area, many via rail. Basilica, Henry Hudson Waterfront Park, Kitty's Market, restaurant, and eventual Red Barn event space, the Wick Hotel, the Antique Warehouse, and William Farmer & Sons make for a bustling, ever-expanding hub of activity in and around the crossing and the waterfront. I would urge the Planning Board to consider the traffic situation at the crossing to the dock as a significant negative impact and safety concern, and to consider a pause deck decision if the conditions remain as they are. If economic development on the waterfront is to bring jobs and commerce to Hudson, a cleaner, safer, forward-looking vision for Hudson must be sought. Thanks for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Leslie. Any other members of the public interested in commenting tonight? Okay, I don't see any additional raised hands. So board, how would you like to proceed? We can close the public hearing at this point and allow for 10 days of an additional written comment if you'd like. We can keep the public hearing open. What would you like to do?
Betsy, if I think back to our workflow chart from the Seeker handbook, which I also confused with the workflow chart from the Seeker workbook, if we close the public hearing, then we have a set number of calendar days, correct? Before we have to issue a positive or negative declaration on the matter?
That's correct. Victoria, do you want to answer that?
That timeline doesn't run from closing the hearing. There's a timeline for making a decision that runs from closing the hearing. But then courts have said that that timeline doesn't actually start until you've made a negative declaration or positive declaration. And then separately, there is a seeker timeline for making a determination of significance once an application has been circulated and lead agency declared. But you know, that is routinely extended, especially in a complicated matter such as this. So the hearing doesn't trigger the seeker neg deck. They're two different timelines.
So Victoria, explain to us, if we were to close the public hearing tonight, what are our next steps?
Well, you'd make a motion to close the hearing with the written comments. And then after that, I'm going to recommend that we start reviewing part 2 of the EAF tonight. Ryan White is here, and we are both prepared to start going through that with you.
Does that sound like how you would like to proceed, board?
Yeah, Victoria, could you go through that timeline just one more time? If we close the public hearing tonight, then, and we, you know, go through the, we'll just go.
If you close the public hearing under statute, there's 62 days for you to make a decision. However, that 62 days is extended. It doesn't even start running until you've made a seeker determination. And if you don't make a decision within that time, nothing happens. There's not an automatic approval.
Once you do make a seeker determination, then what?
Then, you know, the 62-day time frame starts running. But if you don't make a decision, again, nothing happens. There's no automatic approval. It would just be a reason for the applicant. He would be able to go to court and force you to make a decision at that point. But that time period is routinely extended in these types of reviews. So we'd have to ask the applicant to extend that if it came to that point.
Is there, and this could be for Victoria or any board member, maybe specifically you, Betsy, is there do we all feel that the, you know, that we have gone as far as we can in terms of the public hearing? That there's, yeah, I see you, Pat. I'm talking to the board for a second. Would that be the reason why we end the public hearing now? Does it feel we've?
Well, I think so. I think we've had a number of months of public hearings. We've received a tremendous amount of public input. I should mention that we heard back from interested agencies, and all of them affirmed that the Hudson Planning Board should be lead agency. So I'm not anticipating any particularly new information that would come up as a result of the public hearing, but we still do have to make a pos deck or a neg deck on this application in a rather timely way. And I think going through part 2 would help us determine how we want to move forward accordingly. Do you agree, Victoria, that that's, I've got the process basically correct?
Right. So if you're at a point where you haven't heard any new comments, you know, if you're starting to hear the same comments and there's no new information being received, it is appropriate to close the hearing.
And does that mean that the public now no longer has a means to comment or to us? They no longer have the means to do that, the way to do that?
You can keep the comment period open for 10 days. You could keep it open for 30 days if you wanted. But yes, I mean, at some point, once the comment period closes, the board has to close the record at some point to make a decision.
Personally, I would be in favor of closing the public hearing. I think Betsy presented the option of either closing tonight or potentially extending it by 10 days. For my experience, I'm very grateful to every member of the public that's has commented on this application. But I do feel that I have a good sense, I think, of the issues raised by the public at this point. So for me, I don't see the need to extend 10 days. I would be happy to get started on part 2.
I have to agree with Stephen.
So would you like to make a motion to that effect, Steve?
I would just recommend that you keep it open for 10 days. That's the COVID policy because of the way that these meetings are happening. Just for people that have trouble getting on or having technical difficulties, we're just providing them with that
Makes sense.
extra layer.
We could proceed to part 2 if we kept the hearing open for written comments for 10 days.
We can proceed to part 2 tonight. You guys won't be making any decisions. We just want to start that discussion.
Understood.
I agree that the public hearing has been, I think, extended and extremely useful. And I believe there's probably, given the amount of time that it's been open, there's probably not a whole lot more that we can learn from any of.
Clark, you're cutting in and out tonight, just so that you know. So would someone like to make a motion to that effect?
Yeah.
What? I thought Steve was going to do that.
I thought Teresa was about to, but I'm happy to. I would make a motion to extend the public hearing by 10 days. After which it would close. Yeah.
I second.
Okay, board, I will take a roll call vote on this. John Cody,
Yes.
Teresa Joyner,
Yes.
Laura Margolis,
Yes.
Larry Bound,
Yes.
Steve Stein,
Yes.
Clark Weeman. Clark?
Yes. Yes.
Your thumbs up.
Yes.
Clark, you may want to call in if your internet's bad.
Say that again, Victoria.
I was recommending he may want to call in and mute himself.
I'm gonna relocate.
Okay, and Betsy Gramco, yes. All right, so that concludes the Zoom portion of our public hearing, but the public will be invited to make comments, written comments, which can be sent to me, bgramco@cityofhudson.org for the next 10 days. I will make sure to circulate those comments to the applicant and to the board members. So Victoria, I think our next step here.
So just for the record, the board should make a motion to declare lead agency. The project was circulated to other agencies back in August. You did hear back from SHPO, DEC, and OGS, and no one objected to your serving as lead agency.
Correct. So would someone like to make a motion to that effect, that we declare the Hudson Planning Board lead agency on this matter?
So moved.
Thank you, John. Do I have a second?
Second.
Was that Larry?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. We are officially lead agency.
Okay. All right, so if it's okay, Chair Gramcow, I'm just going to make a few statements and then Ryan is going to help lead the board through the part 2 discussion. I don't know how much time we'll have, if we can get through all 18 questions or not, but we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
So as everyone knows, Seeker, the purpose of Seeker is to incorporate the consideration of environmental factors into the planning review process. So every time that an agency makes a decision, the state wants you to consider whether that action or decision is going to result in an impact on the environment. Seeker has a whole process for making this determination. And I just want to point out in response to some of the comments that you don't need a positive declaration to necessarily consider environmental impacts. It's your job to thoroughly consider the impacts, whether you're doing it through an EAF and supplemental materials, or whether you're requiring a full EIS. Sometimes you're not going to get much new information in an EIS. Just as an example, you received a traffic study already. And if you required an EIS, I suspect the applicant would just give you the same traffic study. So, you have to make your decision based on the materials that you have, an evaluation of the facts and supporting documents. And the EIS process is an extended process, which will get you perhaps more supporting documents if there's anything still lacking. But you don't have to go through that process to get that information. You can ask for it now. I just wanted to point that out because I know this is an issue that's come up from the public a lot. Okay, so what is part 2 of the EAF? It is a way to help the board evaluate and identify potential impacts. So you go through the list. I know you've all done this before, but you'll evaluate whether something is an impact, and then you'll have to look at its scale and context to determine whether that impact will be small, moderate, or large. So that's what we're going to do this evening. When we talk about scale, that refers to the size and intensity
Victoria, I'm not sure if you can hear from me, but you're frozen.
Oh, shoot. Okay, I don't see myself as frozen.
I hear you.
Yeah, she's not frozen on my screen.
Me neither.
Though I think Betsy is now frozen.
Let's wait for Betsy to join us.
Betsy, you're frozen.
I apologize. I just lost my connection. I had to get back in. So I'm sorry, Victoria, I didn't hear the end of your statement. Where are we now?
Tonight we're going to start part 2. We're going to identify and begin evaluating the impacts. The other thing I want to point out to the board is that you're going to be doing 2 separate reviews here. The seeker review is where you're going to be evaluating environmental impacts. So you're reviewing an existing dock operation because that's what it is under the code, and that's what the application is for. It's for an existing dock operation that needs a bulkhead repair. So under seeker, you're looking at potential impacts from that application. Separately, under city code, you will be evaluating a conditional use permit for a dock operation. And under city code, the code has given you the ability to place conditions on use of the dock operation, looking at the dock operation as a whole. I think that's everything I wanted to say about part 2 for now, but Ryan's going to pull it up and we're just going to work through each of the questions.
This is John Privatera on behalf of the applicant. I just have a question, a point of order with respect to this process. You're correct, Victoria, that you should look at everything that you have over the literally years on this application. The public now understands that you're seeker lead agency only on the dock because the haul road's been done under seeker. And we're not building anything at the dock going forward. But the most important question I have is, when you go through this form, are you going to bear in mind the list of all of the mitigation that we've already proposed in detail in various correspondence so that you understand the shape of the project as presented? Or are you going to look at it from a theoretical perspective and not looking at all of the tremendous mitigation that we have proposed already?
I mean, that's a loaded question. So I think we should take that as a statement by the applicant. Just reminding you of all the information that's in the record and their proposed mitigation. And so, you know, we'll talk through that as we get to each question.
Could we just confirm that we still have Betsy? Because I don't see her.
I'm here, Laura.
Oh, there you are, honey.
I
Okay.
just turned off my video because my internet is bad.
I see. Okay.
Victoria, can I ask just for clarification on one point that Mr. Privatera made about seeker review on the Hall Road? I understand the Greenport section is done. The portion that runs through Hudson, is that not under our seeker review?
It is not. You are only conducting a seeker review on the dock operation. The Greenport Planning Board was lead agency in a coordinated review on the Hall Road. And so that decision has been made. You're evaluating the Hall Road for a conditional use permit under the city code, but the seeker review has already been completed on that.
All right, got it. Thank you.
I have a follow-up question on that. Previously, I think you mentioned Article 258 review or 258 review, which was separate from seeker on the causeway.
Conditional use permit, is that article? You're talking about the zoning law?
I can't remember what the number that you gave it, but
are you referring to the 239M County Planning Board review?
Maybe.
Maybe.
So you have an application, you have two applications before you. One is for the causeway, one is for the dock operation. The causeway has already undergone its environmental review, but you're still going to be reviewing it as a conditional use permit.
Understood.
As part of that process, you referred it to county planning.
Uh-huh.
And they provided comments under section 239M of the general municipal law.
Got it.
Okay, so I think if we're ready to start moving through part two. Thank you, Victoria, for the introduction to kind of what we're trying to tackle here tonight. Board, as Victoria mentioned, this is part two of the full environmental assessment form is quite can be quite lengthy. It's 10 pages consisting of 18 main questions with a number of sub-questions. And as you're aware from, going through this process on other projects, as Victoria mentioned, the goal is to identify those main categories of potential impacts, the magnitude thereof. And in doing so, you are tasked with considering scale, context, and severity. So scale, refers to kind of the size and intensity. So that could be the square footage of a building or a parking lot, or the intensity of traffic impacts. Context refers to how those in the project site relates to its abutting parcels, neighborhood, and the community as a whole. So what's interesting in context is the same or similar projects in different settings may actually have a different environmental impact through the seeker process because of context. And lastly, severity. Severity looks at, whether that be there is the options on the part two form are broken down into two checkboxes, and those are no or small impact or moderate to large impact. And what's nice is DEC provides workbooks and a bunch of guidance on how to look at each of these impact categories to determine whether something is a small impact or moderate impact. And any of the areas that are identified as moderate to large are further evaluated during part three of the environmental assessment form, at which point the board will make a determination of significance, determining whether that impact category may result in a significant adverse impact. So with all that being said, unless there's any questions, I'm going to share my screen. And what I have up on my screen, hopefully everybody can see it now, is the part one of the FEAF, And this is the version from December 2019 that was circulated with the package, the lead agency circulation package. On the right-hand side of my screen is a blank part 2 of the FEAF, which has some introductory information, and I'll pause there for a moment. But then we get into each of the categories of questions. So as I mentioned, there's 18 major categories, and after answering the primary question, if the answer is no, we move on to the second question. If the answer is yes, we go through each of the questions below. So I'm going to pull up on.
Ryan, may I interject
Go ahead.
for one moment just to
Yeah.
reaffirm to everybody that we are not anticipating getting through the entire part 2 tonight. We still have quite a hefty agenda before us. So Ryan, let's do the best we can for the next half hour or so and then take the pulse on where we are.
All right, very good. And you know, as I talk through this, I'm going to give an introduction to the section, and then I'll turn it over for any board discussion. And if there's questions that Victoria and I can assist with, we're here to do so. But this is you know, these are determinations that you as the lead agency need to be making. So we're here to facilitate that. But ultimately, the discussion and the decision is for the planning board. So the first question is about impact on land. And the question verbatim is, the proposed action may involve construction on or physical alteration of the land surface of the proposed site. So what this is asking is for the reviewing agency, the lead agency, you as the planning board, to evaluate potential impacts to physical alteration of land. So this could include grading, clearing, filling, excavation, et cetera, things along those lines. Some things that do not include physical alteration per DEC guidance is adoption of a comprehensive plan, zoning regulations, acquisition of land, things along those lines. So there are a number of questions in part 1 of the form that can be used to guide the decision making here, and we can navigate to those. But I will turn it over to the board for discussion and questions.
Ryan, I'm just gonna start by saying number 1 is yes, because the triggering event for this permit is the dock repair, which is a physical alteration.
I agree with that.
Okay. So are there any concerns or questions with that determination? So if not, we'll move to. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Okay. So the first sub-question that we'll go through is the proposed action may involve construction on land where depth to water table is less than 3 feet. So we'll scroll to E2D.
Can you make your screen a little bit bigger? It's hard for me to see you.
I can, you know what I can do is I'll do this and let's see now. So we're looking at depth to water table. So the question filled in to on part 1 of the form is, what is the average depth to water table? 10 feet. So if we bounce back to the part 2 form, so the question again is, the proposed action may involve construction on land where depth to the water table is less than 3 feet. So given the information on part 1 of the form, it would appear that the answer to that would be no, or small impact may occur.
Just so I understand it a little bit better, the answer that you found, is that a form that Kalarusu filled out? Is that a form that you filled out or?
So part one of the form is filled out by the applicant and reviewed by all of the agencies. So we have previously provided comments on this form, and those changes have been made to the form. So it's a collaborative effort, if you will.
So Ryan, you can confirm that you've reviewed part one of the EAF.
Yes.
So does that mean that everything that's on part one is reliable and true?
To the best of our knowledge with what information has been provided to us.
It's in our realm to examine and question the part one answers and discuss how we view that response.
So it's definitely within your realm to question the responses. But you know, your question should be based on facts in the record. So
sure.
Yeah.
And you know, to that effect, we and you know, they're part of the project file, but we have provided to date a number of comment letters about part one of the FEAF, and those were from you know, last fall, and resulting in this version from December 10th, I believe. So what I'm going to do here, just to assist in this conversation, is pull up the web soil survey for the project site. And as this loads, we can see that this is mapped as, your guess is as good as mine. I can, but we're going to pull this up, and the what this soil group is it's largely altered land. So the reliance on some of this information, it's done at a very county level scale, but it's meant to show, a broad level look, but it does not vary from one side of another. So at this scale, the soil surveys provided by NRCS are not to be relied on verbatim as opposed to doing soil test pits. So we see here that as a large soil group, which spans the entire county, depth to water table here could be anywhere from 36 to 72 inches. In the project file, which there's been a number of documents provided over the years. The average grade elevation of the site is between 6 and 8 feet. I think there are areas in the realm of 10 feet, and that is above sea level. So in this area, groundwater is consistently approximately 0 feet above sea level. That changes with tides, of course. So that's the information available on water table.
Hey, well, so it seems like the answer. The answer to letter A is potentially no or small impact. But Betsy, how do you want to handle this? Do you want us to give a yay or nay on each item?
That feels a little cumbersome to me. Victoria, what do you recommend?
I think we can just have a general discussion, and if someone feels strongly against a proposed answer, we can talk about it, because there'll be a chance when you vote at the end to really vote yes or no on all of part 2 and part 3.
Just sort of a point of clarification, are we making a final determination now on each of these bullet points or each of these questions? Or are we doing a general open discussion on on?
This is a general open discussion.
Okay.
We're not going to be voting tonight. This is our chance to kind of working through it. It's a workshop discussion. We'll put together a final document, maybe after we have this discussion one more time, and then the board can move forward with voting.
So if we say, just as an example, yes, no or small impact for letter A tonight, and then somebody thinks about it and goes, ooh, I think there's a problem with that. Until we vote on it, we can change this.
Correct. This is a working document until you vote on it.
And what I can do, as I go through this form, I'll provide, the current draft at the end of this session. But what I can do is, if there's any questions or concerns on any of these, I can highlight the specific question so that it brings our attention to it when we go back to it. So we can fill in a draft response, and then I can highlight that if there's any concerns from any members of the board, if that sounds like a good idea.
That would be very helpful, Ryan. Yes, please.
So for question A, it's been proposed that no or small impact may occur with depth to water table less than 3 feet. So I'm going to fill that in. And are there any concerns with that answer at this point in the review? Again, knowing that this is not a final document.
I think
Okay.
we can move ahead.
So we're moving on to question B, which is the proposed action may involve construction on slopes of 15% or greater. So this is largely geared in towards erosion of land, of soil, stormwater runoff, and the such. The proposed action may involve construction on slopes of 15% or greater. E2F, we can take a quick look at the Part 1 form, and as it shows, the entirety of the site is 0 to 10% slopes. Of course, there are some bulkheads. Those are stabilized and don't, function as a slope as the question is worded. So it would appear that the answer here as well is no or small impact may occur.
Well, I have a question about this. This is going to come up, I'm sure, I'm not reading ahead, but I'm sure it's going to come up, right? So these questions to me seem oriented towards an explicit construction project, right? And to evaluate the environmental impacts of a construction project. And the weird thing about our case right now is that we actually don't have a construction project. What we have are operations. And so it's really hard to, so the intent of this question, as I understand it, as you just said, is about erosion, right? And that's so that we don't have runoff into bodies of water and yada yada, right? And it's true, there's no construction on slopes of 15% or greater. And yet the site character of the site in terms of its operation is a series of gravel piles that have a natural angle of repose, right? And as you know, the natural angle of repose of gravel is probably steeper than 15%. So if the actual question here is about runoff, my question is, how are we going to make distinctions between what's going on the site in terms of operations? Because this is a dock operations application and not
construction.
All right, there's other questions on the form.
Yeah.
Where your questions might be better addressed. There's questions about surface water and runoff.
Yeah, and so let me just scroll through here quickly and I'm going to keep going, but the 18 main impact areas, they look at impacts on land, geologic features, surface water, groundwater, flooding. So you can see here where when we're talking about land disturbances, that is directly tied to construction activity. But once we get down into air, that's something that is tied to operations. Plants and animals, that could be an ongoing impact. Aesthetic resources. So yes, to answer, I guess, Larry, looking at this, these are questions that are, largely tied to construction activity. And since this application is for granting a conditional use permit for the continuation of an existing use, there is no, there's very minor. The bulkhead repairs are the extent of the physical alteration.
Ryan,
but
may I
we
ask
are.
you, the reason that the bulkhead was repaired was because there was an erosion problem. So should that not be taken into consideration with this question?
Well, this question is about construction on slopes of 15% or greater. So I think if you go to the site and you stand there,
that edge that was repaired, where the bulkhead was repaired, was definitely much steeper than 15%.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So if that's the case.
So let me read you in that case a couple, in this is from the EAF workbook. So this is not part of regulation. This is guidance that's provided by DEC, but it's ultimately up to the lead agency to make the determination. So under small impact, under this category, it reads that the proposed projects that disturb limited areas of land having slopes greater than 15% are likely to have only a small impact. Examples would be only a small portion of the site contains slopes of 15% and building is limited. Any cut and fill needed to be done without creating slopes greater than 15% with appropriate erosion control measures, and visibility will not be increased due to the position of the slope. And I'm gonna drag this over so you guys can see it actually. And then it also goes through areas where it might be a moderate to large impact. So those are extensive excavation on steep slopes. And this is where it gets into scale and context and the determination of those in making this decision on severity.
So Chair Graham was pointing out that the edge of the dock is a slope. So if that were to be considered a slope, the question would be, is it a small impact or a moderate to large impact? Based on some of these examples. Well, and I also, Larry, to follow up on your question from earlier, you may find that there's not a seeker impact, but that there are definitely use impacts that can be taken care of or reviewed under the zoning law. So right. Just because something doesn't meet the criteria for an environmental impact in New York State doesn't mean that it won't be conditioned under the City of Hudson zoning law.
Understood.
So checking no doesn't mean no further review ever.
Got it.
So that just to expand on Larry's question and Ryan's answer. So Ryan, from what I see then, for example, the gravel piles really don't have a place on this in this forum.
Not on this question.
Not on this question, yeah.
But I don't see it in the document, the whole document. I mean, where would that go here?
Well, I think we should just try to stick with each question. Otherwise, I'm not sure we're going to get through all of them. I think, though, that your question about gravel could come into surface water.
The questions on part 2, and this gets tricky into going through this form, but the questions on part 2 are to help guide you as the lead agency in reviewing this. You'll see under each of these categories, there's a section for other impacts. So those are areas where something like stockpiling, if we find that there is not an appropriate question that addresses the potential impact of stockpiling on the site, that could be added as an other impact. Because yes, as Larry points out, the angular repose of the crushed material that they're using there is going to range from 25 to 45 degrees. So above 15%.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
So does the board feel that the impact is either no to small, or moderate to large for impacts on or construction on slopes greater 15% or greater?
I mean, even if Betsy's right about the bulkhead, it's still a small stretch of the entire parcel. I would say it's no or small impact. Are we agreed on that?
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So then we'll move on to item C. The proposed action may involve construction on land where bedrock is exposed or generally within 5 feet of the existing ground surface. So the Part 1 form states that the average depth to bedrock on the site is 20 to 30 feet. So in this area, taking into consideration that the construction is limited to a small area along the bulkhead and the shoreline stabilization, and the bedrock is reputed to be 20 to 30 feet below existing grade, as opposed to the 5-foot threshold established here, it would appear that the resulting answer would be no or small impact may occur.
I would concur.
All right. We'll move along then to item D. The proposed action may involve the excavation and removal of more than 1,000 tons of natural material. Now this goes to question D2A, but what I will do is, if you would like me to jump over to the Part 1 form, I will do so. I just don't want to make it too difficult to follow my screen. So the site here, they are shipping material out, but there is no excavation or removal of material from the project site. So I can go ahead.
It's not a quarry.
Correct.
Right.
So it would appear that it would either be no or small impact may occur.
Correct.
Okay. So we'll move along to E then. The proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year or in multiple phases. So the use will continue for more than 1 year. There is no construction that is, the construction activity was of short duration and was conducted all at one time. So again, here it would appear that no or small impact may occur.
Right, but that goes back to the issue again, though, right? Because questions are built for a construction project. We don't have one. The operations are ongoing. I mean, we're assessing environmental impacts, right? This is a long duration impact, right? The operations. It's just a funny. We're going to keep running into this. Keep going, but it's.
We are in it.
Larry, if someone was building a shopping center, it's the same concept. This question's asking about construction. So at some point the construction ends, and there's a shopping center which has lots of its own impacts,
right?
But it's no longer construction.
Right. Got it.
Okay, so we're gonna. Is the board in concurrence that it would be no or small impact may occur under this impact area?
Yeah.
Okay. Item F, the proposed action may result in increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal, including from treatment of herbicides. So there will be no. Let's go back to a couple of years when the shoreline was stabilized and the bulkhead repaired. So those areas could have, it's difficult to speak in because it's a completed project, but if we're looking at this as if we are reviewing that action, that construction activity could or may result in increased erosion from vegetation removal. So there was some vegetation on the banks, and there was physical disturbance. So those activities, that impact area, again, could have existed. The work is now complete. So I'm gonna actually navigate to this section of the workbook and share this about physical disturbance. So small impacts could be stormwater discharges. This doesn't really apply. Projects that includes land clearing disturbs less than 1 acre and does not require a SWIP. So the project SWIP is required when 1 acre of land is disturbed. The site is covered by a multi-sector general permit that has existed on the site since the Colarusos have owned the property.
Brian, can you define SWIP for us?
Stormwater pollution prevention plan.
Right.
And that is required by what's called a SPEEDIES permit, a DEC permit, for construction activity where 1 acre or more of land is disturbed. So as a comparison, the causeway does require a SWIP. Now that's not what we're discussing here, but that's what a SWIP is. So there's some other examples here. Does the board have a feeling on whether no or small impact may occur, or moderate to large under this impact category?
I'm sorry to jump in a little bit here, and I'll try to minimize it a great deal. But the challenge to the board is how big the record is. And I just wanted to remind people there's about 10 inches of documentation on all of the work we did to stabilize the shoreline and build the bulkhead, where we got permits from federal and state authorities. So that record itself shows that we minimized erosion, did not increase it. That's part of the record, all of the work we did and all the permits we got.
Right, as Ms. Graham-Cow pointed out earlier, the purpose of the bulkhead repair is to minimize erosion.
So is it, I'm gonna suggest, or I'm gonna offer that this would be no or small impact may occur. Is there any discussion or thoughts on that?
No.
Okay. The last item under G is the proposed action is or may be located within a coastal erosion hazard area. And the Part 1 form reflects that the area is not within a coastal erosion hazard area.
How do we know that? Is there a map?
From there are maps provided, and those have been reviewed. It is within obviously a coastal area. DEC provides maps of the hazard areas, and I'm going to try and pull those up as we speak here. Or what we can do here is we can highlight this question. Most of these areas from are located Long Island and some areas that are more truly coastal per se. But I can highlight this question, and I can provide backup documentation from DEC to provide to the board if that would be in the essence of time and keeping the discussion moving.
I'm looking at the DEC website now, and it defines New York's coastal waters, and it does list the Hudson River south of the federal dam in Troy.
Thank you, Ryan. Would you highlight that and we'll just leave it for the time being until you can show us the maps?
I will. And are there any other impacts that the board would like to discuss under impacts to land?
I want to just make a comment, and I guess I'm going to reiterate some of Larry's maybe confusion here or lack of clarity. The Supreme Court ruled that Coloruso's non-conforming use use category disappeared when the erosion control project was triggered. And this whole process is reviewing their operations. And I'll admit to confusion. And I know, Ryan, you're trying to help us clarify that we're looking at specific construction, which in theory is not being proposed, but there are operations that it's our job to review and to document fully those impacts. And I realize we went through this list and there's no, at least in theory, we haven't pushed the notion that there's land impacts. But I think the board needs to be reminded that stepping back, the Supreme Court ruled that the Coloruso's, the applicant's non-conforming use has gone away, and our job is to review proposal for a conditional use permit. So I believe, I want to make that sort of qualifying statement that there may be areas, and maybe you can help us out here, there may be areas where that sort of gray area needs to be clarified. And I know there's a statement by the applicant's lawyer that there's an existing use, there are existing buildings, but there is not existing operation that's allowed by law. And it's our job to go over to review the operations. And again, maybe there's ways that we can make sure that we are clear relative to this document that we're doing our job. But I'm just pointing that out as we proceed.
This is an ongoing struggle, is because this is a unique type of permit that is just in Hudson, in a very unique situation that, how it fits within seeker. It's been something that, we've been thinking about a lot. Ryan and I have been grappling with. Here, I know the Supreme Court made a decision and they said the whole use has to come back in. But when you look at the code, the only way that the use is allowed is because it's existing. So inherently, by calling the use an existing dock operation, there's an acknowledgement there that there is an existing underlying dock use. And so you are permitting an existing dock operation. You're looking at the whole operation, the whole thing, but there is an acknowledgement there that it exists. And so this first set of questions, apart from that comment, this first set of questions is really just about impact on land. So as I explained, if there was a shopping center being built, these questions still wouldn't speak to ongoing operations, right? That's a different set of questions. These questions are simply about physical disturbance to land.
But just so, let's just say that Coloruso had not yet performed the dock, fix the dock, and they were coming to us, for that.
What they should have done, yes.
Right, which we all know and they know, and now here we are. Would these questions be answered differently if this were the beginning of that process?
No, you should be considering this application as if the dock work hasn't occurred yet, because they did that without the permit.
Oh.
So like the same way, if someone built a bar without getting approval and then they came in to get their approval, you have to consider, the work. So here you're reviewing the dock work.
As if it did not happen.
The repairs.
Yeah, as if those did not happen.
As if they haven't happened yet. And
right.
So.
Okay, so then I don't understand why the answer to F is no or small impact may occur. If we're looking at this as if the dock had not been repaired already, I question why F would be the little to no impact. I mean, I guess I don't understand why.
Well, so I mean, if the dock repair was, they've presented plans for that dock repair, and I'm not an engineer, so I'll let the engineer speak to whether those plans were appropriate or not.
Yeah, so the plans for the bulkhead repair, the repair work was, and you know, again, we're looking at this as if it was not built. So the applicant provided a geotechnical engineer's design, so a stamped design of that bulkhead, as well as a stamped plans of the shoreline stabilization area. Both of those did receive permits. That work all received permits from the DEC and the Army Corps. So when we're looking at this question, Laura, and trying to determine whether it's a small impact or a moderate to large impact, that's something that it goes to, you know, the planning board's evaluation of scale and context. So what I can do is provide you with the guidance that DEC offers, and I'm going to share these considerations. So when trying to make a determination under this question or an identification of an impact, so is the project required to create and implement a SWIP? The answer to that is no. How much of the parcel without impervious surfaces? That doesn't really go to the question at hand, since there is no creation or destruction of impervious surfaces. How much of the parcel will be physically disturbed or have vegetation removed? So in order to implement the bulkhead repair and the shoreline repair, it is a very small portion of the, I think in previous areas, it's, you know, in the thousands of square feet of the entire parcel. What proposed activities could cause erosion? So that would be the actual construction activity, but the construction activity, you know, which has been pointed out, is geared to prevent and minimize erosion, because both the bulkhead and the shoreline were eroding. Are there streams, wetlands could be affected? Yes, we know that. So what impacts are proposed to limit erosion impacts? So as part of the permitting process, the applicant and their contractors were required to implement that, or will be required to implement best management practices such as cofferdams and turbidity curtains in order to complete the work and minimize erosion. So we know that there is a potential for increased erosion from physical disturbance. But when we look at whether that be a small impact or a moderate to large impact, based on this guidance, it does appear that that would fall into the impact area of small. But if there's a difference of opinion there, we absolutely can go into more detail.
Hey, Ryan, this is Pat Prendergast. Would it help if I showed pictures, if I shared the screen of what the riverfront looked like before the erosion was fixed and then after it was fixed?
Well, truthfully, Pat, at least I've seen it probably maybe 10 to 15 times.
Okay.
I guess it just, I don't know about anybody else, but just wrapping my head around where I am right now. In other words, I'm now back, you know, many years ago, you know, before this, the bulkhead was you know, was worked on, and then just trying to think, what would I be thinking then if I were doing this? So that I just, you know, but that's okay. I have to say, I think we can move on. I think we can move.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Unless anybody else.
And I mean, I would, and I know, you know, Victoria's touched on it, and I think we're all in the same boat here, looking at this retroactively. So it is difficult to think back, but you know, we're looking, you know, we've got to look at it in terms of, you know, the work is proposed, you know, and as Victoria described. Now, I was able to, coastal, in terms of the question on coastal erosion hazard areas, these are not available digitally online, but it does, this is from the DEC's website, so I'll just highlight this portion where it says mapped areas currently include the shorelines of Lakes Erie in Ontario, the entire coastline of Long Island, and the Atlantic Ocean coastline of New York City. So maps are available at request, but this does identify the areas where there are mapped coastal erosion hazard areas.
John, go ahead.
You might want to check with the New York State Department of State Coastal Management Office. They've always considered the Hudson River to be part of the coastal zone, so.
Yes, it is part of the coastal zone. The coastal erosion hazard areas are different, but what I will do, I'm going to leave this highlighted, and I'm going to reach out to the contacts here at DEC to just ask them to confirm that there are no coastal erosion hazard areas in Columbia County.
Board, it is now 7:45.
Yeah.
We've made it through one question. We still have 2 applications to consider, an escrow agreement, 2 common council resolutions, escrow procedures, and old business. How would you like to proceed? I will leave it to you.
I believe that we should do what you suggested, Betsy. It's been more than that half hour you mentioned. And that, you know, we got a good start. Getting started is always the hardest part. So I think we should move on so we can finish the rest of our business.
I agree.
Does anyone on the board disagree?
I don't disagree, but I'm wondering if there might be some way, you know, I'd love to make progress, and I think certainly the applicant would love to see us make progress. Is there a way that, I mean, you know, Ryan, could we do for ourselves what you were just doing for us, right? Like, you know, we have
Larry, if I might, I was actually going to consider asking you all if I could have you take 2 or 3 sections of this, 2 or 3 larger questions, go through the workbooks and become an expert on this, like the board expert on this with Ryan and Victoria's help, so that I mean, I don't think we can all memorize every answer, every workbook suggestion, though we can read through them quickly, but I would like to suggest that each of us take a couple of sections and do a deep dive.
I think that makes total sense.
So I don't think we need to assign those sections tonight, but if you all are okay, I will go through the FIF part 2 and I will assign you sections. How is that to review?
That makes sense.
And you know, just speaking for myself, you know, if there's any questions on where information can be found, or if there's project documentation to that specific area, you know, and I'm sure Victoria as well, we're both available to help in, you know, help in your review of part 2. Betsy, I will save this version of part 2 and provide that by email to you this evening.
Thank you very much. So you can expect to hear from me by Friday about which sections I'm going to ask you to take on. And it might be 2 of you. If it's a particularly onerous topic, I might say, okay, I'll take this and this, but I want you to work together on this part and that part. So just let me take a look at the FIF and try to determine for myself by looking at the workbooks how complex the review is going to be, and then I will let you all know what parts you're going to be responsible for. Okay. So we don't need a motion to close this. We just need permission to move on. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. So long as it's Pat, Ryan, you're waving goodbye, or are you waving because you want to say something? Waving goodbye.
Waving good night.
Thank you.
Night, everybody. Please
right.
let me know if you have any questions or if I can assist with any of your review. Good night.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Betsy, can I make a comment before we move on?
Of course.
Yeah, sorry. I know we had planned, or at least was on the radar, to discuss in an attorney-client session some of the legalities of the Supreme Court ruling and et cetera. And I'm wondering if it makes sense for us to do that before we proceed much further, given Larry's concern and our concern about that sort of strange gray area.
I tell you what I'm going to recommend, and that is I'm going to recommend that everybody read through the full environmental, the FEEF, read through it. Just don't, just sort of peruse it, understand what's there. Then as we're going through this, we'll rely on our board experts and Victoria and Ryan to sort of fill in some blanks for us. And then at the end, I think we can expect to have quite an in-depth session with our attorney about any outstanding questions we may have or concerns. But I think it will be easier once we've gone through the FEEF to do that.
Thank you.
So you're saying we're going to review the sections and then have a session with our attorney and then do this again?
Yeah, once we go through part 2, unless there's something really pressing in the meantime, let's make sure we get through part 2. We understand what our questions are. We've had conversations like we've had tonight with Ryan and Victoria, and where appropriate with the applicant. And then we can have an attorney-client session with Victoria and Ryan if we want to discuss any outlying concerns that we may have.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Rather than doing it piecemeal and before we've gotten into the review, I'd rather sort of make it a comprehensive discussion at the end. Okay, thank you. So moving on to our new business tonight, Adam Weinert, I just saw you. There you are. Hi. So we have an application for 42 Allen Street, special use permit application from Adam to keep 5 hens for personal use. Adam, you have the distinct honor of being our first chicken application.
Yes.
Very exciting.
So congratulations to you. Do you have documents that you'd like to share on your screen with us? You don't have to. You submitted everything.
Right, I think what and forgive me, I'm on my husband's iPad right now, so I'm not in a great position to share my screen, but I did submit all the documents that I think you need.
Yes, you absolutely did. And board, did you have a chance to review those documents and the application? Yes, everybody did. Are there any questions about this? Any concerns about this? Anything you'd like to see modified or changed or you don't understand?
I do have a question because this is our first one. So the law has certain rules about how far from the side yard fence and the rear yard fence the coop must be, and how big the run is, and all this, right? And this is maybe a question for Betsy, or maybe it's a question for Adam, but has that review by Craig already taken place before this comes to us? So that, I guess my question is, do we know that it's at a minimum code compliant already?
Adam, can you speak to that? I'm just looking up the application now.
Yeah. So the law as written requires 5 from the property line and 15 feet from the nearest dwelling. My plans are in excess of that, more than double the minimums established by the chicken law of 2020.
Okay. Thank you, Adam. I remember that myself. And remember too, Larry, that Craig will inspect this on an annual basis. So for compliance. So that's sort of our fail-safe, that this is going to be looked at on an ongoing on an ongoing basis.
And so Craig already has basically approved Adam? Has he?
Oh, well, it's my understanding that my application is in compliance with the guidelines as set by the recently passed chicken law. Craig hasn't been by to look at my backyard yet, but I look forward to welcoming him when such time comes.
I think what Craig looked at when he looked at this is the chicken law and Adam's proposed plans. And I don't think he would have sent it on to us if it was not in compliance with the code. That's his responsibility.
Yeah.
To make sure it's code compliant. Okay, so does anyone have any more questions about this application?
Yes, like what's our role here? I mean, what? So if it meets code and our site plan review, what other criteria would we apply? I mean, would we apply general like health and safety and community character issues that are broadly stated in Article 8 of the planning board's guidelines, or jurisdictionally, I kind of want Victoria back, but like, what's our what? Yeah, what?
I'm not a legal eagle here, you know that. But my understanding is that Adam's plans are in compliance with the law as it is written. But this does have to come before the planning board per the Common Council and the legislation that was passed. Adam has paid the permit fees. Craig has sent the plans on to us. I don't think that there's anything really onerous that we need to do here, frankly. Knowing that if there are any complaints, they will go to if there suddenly is a rooster in Adam's coop and the neighbors start calling because it's crowing at 4 a.m., Craig will receive those complaints and Adam will have to comply with getting the rooster out of there, for instance. So at this point, it sort of comes down to a matter of us saying either yay or nay, though I'm hard pressed to find a reason to say nay, since this has been a legislated piece of code. And understanding that Adam is going to have to remain compliant with all city code, and Craig is there to make sure that happens.
Is this a public hearing situation, or, I mean?
I hate to waste everyone's time with a public hearing on this, but I'll defer to you all. What would you like to do?
I'm a libertarian at heart, and my sense would be let's if it's code compliant, let's proceed. I don't see a need for a public hearing, but if we start to have too many of these things, or we have noise complaints or odor complaints or whatever, then we really may need to say, hey, we can't just let it go. We have to be more vigilant. But until we actually understand what this means for our town and what it means for neighbors and everything else, seems fine to me. But that's my own, frame of
I
reference.
tend to agree, knowing that Craig will have to investigate any complaints. That's sort of why I'm very comfortable with this, because any complaint is going to go to the code enforcement officer, and the applicant's going to have to, or the chicken owner is going to have to comply with city code, which is quite specific.
Adam, could you just tell us about your neighbors? Because it seems like we're moving in the direction of not having a public hearing. Just talk to us about your neighbors and how you think they'll be okay with this.
Yeah, I've spoken with my neighbors, both across the street and next door. To our other side, it's not a residence, it's the Allen Street Schoolhouse, now called the River House. Tony and Melissa, they're fine with it, as are our residential neighbors. Some of them are looking forward to having some fresh eggs on occasion.
Lucky stiffs. All right, board. So I'm inclined to ask whether or not we can have a motion to approve this application.
Move to approve the application.
I want to, if we approve this application, he's asking for 5 hens? Was it
5 hens, which is the maximum you can have, Teresa.
Okay, great. That's what I was gonna ask. Can he add another 5?
Don't we waive the public hearing first?
I think we make a motion. Yes, do you want to make a motion to waive the public hearing in this case, Clark?
So
I do make a motion to waive the public
hearing.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor of waiving the public hearing, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now as for the application, can I have a motion to approve special use permit application from Adam Weinert to keep 5 hens for personal use?
Move to approve the application.
Thank you, Steve. Do I have a second?
I second.
Teresa, thank you. Everybody in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Our first chicken man cometh. We all expect 1 egg.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
the rest of your evening.
Okay, Adam, just so that you know before you go, I'm gonna need to stamp your plans. So
Okay.
we'll need to make it a time to meet. I live right around the corner from you. So we'll make it,
Okay.
I can stamp your plans. You're gonna have to file them with the city and with the city code enforcement officer.
Great.
Okay, we'll be in
Okay.
touch.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Say hi to RB. Okay, board, thank you very much. Next on our new business is 255, 259 Union Street, a special exception permit application from Wild Hudson to house a business office for community-oriented business. Crystal, are you presenting that tonight?
I am. Thank you, Betsy. Crystal Hines appearing for the applicant, Wild Hudson. The owner of the property is the Galvin Initiatives Foundation. They have signed off on the application, giving the applicant the authorization to move this forward. This is Union Street, but this is actually the old OR building. While it's on kind of on South 3rd, it's a Union Street address, so somewhat confusing. So just keep in mind that this is OR. Currently it's vacant. What the applicant intends to do if this special exception use permit is granted is to use this as a business offices. They intend to both use this as a space for people coming into town to share workspace, sort of collaborate on different things, get out of their homes as we're all sort of working in these home environments. They also plan to have their own offices there. The Wild itself is sort of a community company. And if you see, they have included a pamphlet of information just about them and what they intend to do in Hudson, and particularly at this location. In addition, like I said, to what they do, what they want to do with the business offices and the shared space, they also want to use it as their own business. And again, they are in the business of community. So to that end, they plan to hold educational talks and panels, provide businesses space for local charities and community initiatives, provide coaching and mentorship programs, and offer inclusive membership model. In addition to that, there are some customary accessory uses to the business office. They are looking for, there's kind of a gallery space already set up in the building. They'd like to use that for antiques and local makers as a gallery space as it has been. They would like to have a cafe in the space. There would be no on-site food preparation, a seasonal outdoor market, and events furthering education and networking. It is an old service station. It is a concrete block structure. They do not plan to make any changes to the same. The neighborhood itself is on South 3rd Street. It's a mix of residential and commercial. On the Union Street side of things, it is residential. They only have one abutting neighbor. The rest is the streets and alleys around the property. And that is essentially it. We have included a rendering, or not a rendering, a satellite view of the neighborhood, just so you get an idea of what the neighborhood is, as well as the site plan, which shows the space and how they're going to set it up.
Crystal, because they will be hosting events and some of them will be outside, is there what is the lighting plan? What is the situation with amplified sound, speakers, that kind of thing, and hours of operation? Those would all be important things for us to know.
Yes. So their hours of operation, Monday through Friday would be 7:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Saturday and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. These are general hours of operation, and the applicant may operate beyond said hours, particular weekends such as winter walk, when essentially the town is buzzing until probably 9 or 10 at night after the fireworks. But generally, those would be their hours of operations. I don't think that there's any plans to change the current lighting. They have the space in front of the concrete structure that has a fence surrounding it. We can submit some pictures of the lighting that exists now.
And that would be the sort of bulb lighting that they have.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if there was any other lighting. I kind of, frankly, I did not think to look at lighting when I was last at the space.
Okay. And
yeah, we can get
also,
photos for that.
Another question I would have is, there is space to park on the side of the building. Will that be utilized as parking? Will that continue to be open space? What is their plan?
The plan is to use that as more of open space. I think that's where they'd like to have the outdoor market. It's sort of a perfect space to congregate people.
And
I
are
have a
there
question.
maximum number of people that can congregate at any one time?
They have anticipated for the increase in shoppers. They expect 8 to 20 people for outdoor events.
Okay,
I'm,
sorry, a lot of air. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm looking at the site plan, the sort of multicolored site plan.
Yeah.
And the space that we're talking about, which is currently parking, is my understanding that the parking is going to go away.
That's correct.
And it says here,
It's not required anymore.
right. It says here mixed use outdoor space.
Yes. So
What the
that's
hell
where
does that
they
mean?
Well, that's some of the events that they're talking about. So if they wanted to do something, let's say one of the not-for-profits that they want to sort of lend their space to when they need it, if they needed to do something outdoors, they would have that space. They had talked a little bit about perhaps in the winter setting up a small ice skating rink in that space, and doing something like that. It's not been finalized or solidified, but that's the sort of thing that they're talking about doing with that space, that outdoor space, but it would not be for parking.
I think, you know, based on my experience with other applications, that we probably need a more complete description of what might happen there. You know, will it be fenced? Will it be open? Will there be any lighting, planters, sound, you know, projected sound? It's really hard to understand what it might be like. And it could be great. I'm not saying those things should be impediments to the, you know, the imagination of what goes on there. But I think for the community to understand things and for us to certainly vote, you know, in favor or against something, we probably want to know more.
Okay.
Is the owner or the organization itself a not-for-profit? I guess.
No.
Okay.
They're not a not-for-profit.
Okay. I mean, it's fine if they are. I'm just trying to get my mind around what I'm just not clear, as Larry's kind of saying, I'm not clear on what they're.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I encourage you to take a look at this PDF that was included with the application. It gives you a sense of who they are and what they want to do here in Hudson and sort of their philosophy. I mean, I could sit here and read it to you. I don't think that's the most.
Well, I read it and I still asked my question, right? So
Yeah.
it's, I think, you know, in terms of hardscape, landscape, yeah, what kind of access and egress? I mean, it could be great, but on the other hand, like an ice skating rink, you know, how do you control the fact that people aren't just going to wander in and out? And it's got that weird curb, you know, already that you can just drive into the thing. Yeah, I would just like to know more.
All right. Well,
Larry, I would like to know more. I read it too. I find it to be, you know, it's a philosophy. Not actually.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. I think it was a marketing document, which I found compelling and interesting. But I think the questions are very reasonable to bring to this. I mean, one question I did want to ask too was about the inclusive membership model, just to get a sense of how many people will be using the space. Is it primarily for members, and then there will be public events that take place in the space, or is it open to the public for the cafe, for instance, and for people to come in and kind of work during the day? Case by case basis, or is it just members?
I will let the applicants who are here answer that.
Hi, everybody. I'm Hillary, and this is Lucas.
Hi, Hillary. Hi, Lucas.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi, nice to meet you all. It's going to be a mix of hours that will be dedicated just to membership and also public. Most likely in the morning, it will be, as far as public is concerned, and then during weekdays, during the days, a membership model that will be an inclusive membership model. So different, such as like rolling grocer, so something that is a little bit more universal to involve the community.
I have a question. What building are we talking about? Are we talking about the building that UGG was in?
Or
used to be
or building, sort of across from the Boys and Girls Club.
The old Nax garage.
Right, which is on the corner of 3rd and
Union.
What's the other street that it? The alley.
The Union and the alley.
Okay. It's not on Union.
Well, it's not really, but it does have one side on Union. The north side is on Union.
That's what.
Correct. We've got North 3rd Street, we've got Union and Partition. And then one side is the neighbor on Union, which is owned by the same property owner as this. So the only parcel that abuts this parcel is owned by the same owner.
I just wanted to get the building right.
Yeah, you've got it.
Thank you.
Crystal, I think we need an affidavit from Galvin approving this use.
Well, the planning board application has a spot in the very beginning that says that if the applicant is not the owner must complete the following. The owner did sign it.
Okay. I remember for a different project, we needed actually a letter. I'll double check. And other thing we're going to need.
We have that letter as well. I don't know if it's made it into your hands, but we can pass that on.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you very much. Yeah, we would like to have that. It's just, it completes the package so that we can be assured that Galvan actually understands what you're doing there and is in agreement with the use of the property. So that would be just important for protection for you as well as us.
Of course.
So I'm going to suggest that we have a public hearing on this. And we can schedule that for November. And that we establish some escrow because the planning board is going to need a little bit of legal advice on this just to make sure that we're doing everything correctly. So the second piece of this would be if the planning board agrees that this application is substantially complete, or do you want to wait for lighting, hardscape, landscape? That's your decision, board. What would you like to do?
Well, couldn't that be presented at the beginning of the public hearing?
Sure can.
I mean, that makes sense to me. It moves it along, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And we would appreciate that.
Okay, yeah.
What? Given the fact that a lot of us, used to drink whiskey at Orr and now it's gone, I think we have a familiarity with the property. It might help somehow if you were able to visualize what the uses of the parking area might be, either diagrammatically or with a little perspective or something that sort of helps the public see what a skating rink would be there, or what rolling grocers, pop-up outdoor market would be, or whatever it is. You know, whether you do it by icons or an actual little rendering, I don't know, but some things that help seasonally or you know, time of day, get a sense of how this thing is going to shift. Yeah, I think that would help.
That would help us tremendously. People are used to that being a space that people have congregated before. Obviously, we all know OR. So that's not really, it's not a change of use that way. We just want to make sure that what we're approving, that we understand the complexity or the depth of what it is we're approving. And while we read the marketing materials, they are designed to do that and not to really be a full and complete rendering with what you're planning on doing. Are you going to have outdoor seating? I assume you are, but I don't really know that for sure. Are you going to put trees and pots there? Are you, I mean, just, we really need to know a little bit more about how you're going to use the property and how many people you anticipate being there at any one time. I think that would be very helpful. And you're absolutely right, Larry. There's no reason why we can't ask for that to be delivered to us in the meantime, and they can go through their plans at the beginning of a public hearing, which we would ask them to do anyway. So do I have a motion to deem this application substantially complete or complete enough that we can call a public hearing?
Maybe complete enough to call a public hearing.
Teresa, thank you. And do I have a second?
Second.
Larry, okay. All in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, so we will schedule you for a public hearing for our November meeting, second Tuesday of November. And I will look for that information from you, Hillary, in the meantime.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Crystal.
Thank you all.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Oh, darn it. I didn't get the resolution to establish escrow.
Oh.
I think we can do that and send it along to them. I sent it all to you, sorry. So I was suggesting, I sent a resolution along to you that I just cribbed from another resolution, suggesting that we open escrow at $3,000, understanding that any amount that's not used up will be returned to them within 30 days of the conclusion of their application being approved or not. So did you all have a chance to review that escrow resolution that I sent you?
Just out of curiosity, Betsy, which part of the application did you feel like we needed the legal review for?
I'm sorry, ask me that again, Steve. I didn't hear you.
Just what we needed the legal review for on the application.
I'm just concerned, sometimes Victoria picks up things that we don't. Now, maybe you don't feel that we need legal review on this. So by all means, if you don't, I'd rather save them the money, but I was just trying to cover our bases. What do you all think, Board? I'm open to this.
I rather agree with Betsy. Just maybe I won't once I'm not confused about what exactly they're doing, but I guess because I'm rather confused, but I'm not confused. I'm the same way the rest of you are that read it. I don't, I'd like a clearer picture. The question I have is, wasn't there, and I can't remember exactly what it was, and everybody knows it, that because it had been, a filling station or whatever, there were certain things that OR could not do there, which is why they ended up having a gallery instead of whatever it was that they originally were going to do, which I think was maybe a restaurant.
They couldn't prepare food on site. That was the.
That was a zoning thing, not a remediation thing, right?
Oh, that's a zoning thing?
That is a zoning thing.
Okay, I think you're right, Larry.
They're not suggesting a change from that.
Well, I think they're going to have food, but
not on site.
Not on site?
I mean, they're going to sell it, but they're not going to prepare it on site. They don't have a
I see.
Well, Board, do you want Victoria on this one or not?
Well, Betsy, in principle, I love the idea that you know, we're pretty efficient. I mean, if we get the escrow, maybe we don't need 3,000, maybe we need 1,500. But you know, having it parked there, and if we need an hour or two of Victoria's time, she's available. And if we don't, they get the 1,500 back or whatever the dollar amount is. You know, but I think absent having legal counsel that attends the duration of our meetings, I think it's a good idea that we get in the habit of setting up escrow accounts on these projects. And if we never need it, then we, you know, we don't use it. But you know, I don't want to have that situation where we all of a sudden hit a sticking point and we don't know what to do because we don't have counsel.
Right. That's what I'm constantly concerned about myself. I'm not a lawyer, and none of us on this board are lawyers. So it does make me nervous when we don't have some sort of legal representation just to review things for us.
We don't even play one on TV. So, you know,
Maybe for these
I
smaller
think we should.
And maybe for these smaller projects, it could be 1,500.
It can be whatever we set it at.
So we set it low, and then if we need more, then it's more. But at least for the smaller projects, because I mean, I can imagine that they're going to hear 3,000, and you know, their heart might pop.
That'd be a gulp, yeah. Whereas 1,500 is, what is that? That's like, you know, 7 or 8 hours of Victoria's time. I can't imagine her needing that much time on this, you know. So it's ample, but it's, you know, that's a filing fee, right? Like, and they'll get it back if we don't need it.
Okay, so I've amended the resolution to $1,500. That was easy.
Sorry.
But Steve brings up the point. I mean, I want to make sure, Steve, you feel comfortable that having some legal representation, even just to look this over, is a good idea. Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, no, I think in general, it's always better to have that option for sure. I think I just wanted to understand if this is kind of our new policy now, just to have it establish an escrow, then that sounds great to me. And I think considering how much we need, because it is hard to imagine this one would take more than probably an hour of Victoria's time. So I don't want to make it necessarily onerous for the applicant. But I guess what I had in mind was the Columbia Filling Station project, and I think we didn't do escrow on that, but
we did $3,000 on that.
Okay. But because we saw some similar things in that one where it was like the outdoor space wasn't well defined, and they were to come back and provide that detail basically. So, but I guess I mistakenly thought we didn't do escrow on that one. So yeah, no, it sounds great to me.
Okay. All right. So $1,500 is our number, and we're comfortable with that. May I have a motion to approve the escrow resolution as amended?
I'll move that.
Laura?
I'll make that
second.
And John? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Wonderful. I will get in touch with them and alert Victoria. Thank you, board. So common council resolutions, we have 2 of them. Have you had a chance to look them over? The common council has asked out of courtesy they've told us that they're proposing a local law amending the city's zoning code to further regulate the use of dwellings for certain short-term lodgings and vacation rentals. Pursuant to Hudson City Code Section 325-40, the Common Council hereby requests the recommendation of the Planning Board on the proposed local law. We are under no obligation to speak up here unless you want to.
Betsy, should I maybe should just mention at the outset that I operate an Airbnb in the second floor of my home. So should I recuse myself from?
Yes, you probably should, Steve. Thank you. I'll make note of that.
Can I pretend like I do? Recuse myself too?
I have a comment, I think, that responds to Laura's comment. First, I'm very pleased and encouraged that the council reached out to us, and I think a healthy interchange between that body and ours is good for the city. And so I'm really happy that we have this request. At the same time, we tend not to evaluate things that happen inside of buildings, right? Most of what we do is community character and site plan and noise and a whole range of things which are really sort of outside the realm of whether a person inside a building is there for 2 nights or 2 years. And it seems to me personally, I would just love to tell the Common Council that I very much appreciate and am pleased with the request, but that I personally don't feel that we have any jurisdiction over this topic, which to me really seems like it's something for the politicians to deal with and not us. We're not elected.
I agree.
So Larry, I just took notes on your suggestion, and I am happy to write Tom DiPietro and say very much just say exactly what you said. That thank you very much for including us in the discussion. We really appreciate it. That we don't typically review things that happen in the interior of buildings. Rather, we're charged with community character, noise, or disturbances and the like. But we very much appreciate and are pleased by the request, and wish them the best of luck.
Yeah, I love that.
Should we vote on that?
What?
I make a motion, you send that.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I second.
Laura?
All of us second.
Sorry, I know I'm recused, but just on the process part, did they do a seeker review at the Common Council, and is that why they're seeking comment from the planning board? Which also just speaks to, I'm happy to send this one back if that's how everyone feels, but is that why they sent that to us, because they did seeker review on it?
They didn't do seeker. They are citing 325-40. And I did look that up when that first came in, and now I can't remember what it was. Not really fast.
Resolution.
This does come up from time to time. Okay, hang on. Sorry, board. I should have been better prepared here.
Confirmed as lead.
Once, but it was so long ago, I don't remember. 325-40. It comes in under zoning, which is why they're approaching us. Section 40. Method of amendment. Oh, yes, I remember. Because they're proposing a change to text in the code as it relates to short-term rentals. And it comes in under the zoning code, and it involves a change. That's why they're asking us if we want to weigh in, because the zoning code is what we are bound by.
Okay. Now, in the resolution, it did say something about Common Council is confirmed as lead agency under seeker, and the president of the Common Council is authorized to sign the full EAF. So I guess was I misunderstanding that they did a secret process, or no?
Ooh, this is such a good question. I don't know.
We have escrow on this one?
Do we have escrow on this one? Oh, no.
Well, shoot, maybe we've got to look at this better.
Well, they're saying that the zoning law needs to be amended. It erroneously defines what a dwelling unit is. Basically, they're cleaning up what they want the code to look like as it relates to short-term rentals. and they want to make it so that you must live on the property. You know, there are certain restrictions they want to put in place that aren't in the code now.
So how would this affect us on the planning board? If somebody comes and wants to start an Airbnb, it's not up to us to say, are you living there? I mean, and again, I think, are they looking for our approval to this? Is it just something to?
Yeah, I think they're looking, because it is related to the code. I think that they're asking us if we want to weigh in on it.
Can we ask Steve, who actually has one of these, if
Not really now, because he's got to be recused from our conversation.
just go like this, yes, no, you know.
I want to comment. I want to stick to original position. That common council's job to do this. And I'm not sure what our input's going to do to change anything. And it's elected officials' job to set this kind of policy. Again, I'll second Larry's notion that we thank them for asking our input, but I know this is, to be honest, a very major political can of worms that they work through. God love them. And I'm not sure what else we can do to alter that or change that or influence it.
Or really add to the conversation. That was the way, when I read this, I was like, I don't actually know what I can add here as a member of the planning board. I think it is a legislative thing. They're responsible for changing the code if they don't like bits of it. And this just felt to me, I mean, if they were talking about changing conditional use permits or a zoning, the meaning of a zoning area district, we would absolutely weigh in on that.
And that has happened where we've been asked to join, you know, to render an opinion. But this,
yeah, like for example, let's say Stewart's. I think they came to us and asked our opinion on
They
Stewart's.
did. They did.
Yeah. Project land use decision.
They absolutely did, but this feels vaguely different to me because it's to Larry's point, it's what goes on inside, and I just don't. I don't know. It's nothing that we would ever act on.
Then let's. We've now discussed it. We've given it, you know, some of our, you know, thoughts and time, and we agree that to go back to what Larry had suggested.
Yeah. Okay. So we did have a motion and seconded and a vote unanimously to approve that. And if, with your permission, I will write that letter and send it off to them, and I will send you all a copy. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Now we do have a second motion, or sorry, a second resolution from the Common Council. The resolution commenced the seeker process for proposed law H. Oh, here it is, the short term. This is the seeker part. See, I did not read this carefully.
Oh.
This is the seeker part that they did. So at its regular monthly meeting, September 15th, resolution 12, copy attached, was adopted. The resolution commenced the seeker proceedings for proposed law H, which is the short-term rentals, setting a date for a public hearing. Previously, I'd forwarded the proposed local law requesting the board's recommendation. However, I neglected to include the resolution. So this is just the backup to the seeker. And if I had read this more carefully, board, I would have noted that. So here's their seeker backup. I don't think it changes what we just decided.
They're sending to us as an interested or involved agency.
Yeah, as an interested party within a municipal board that has interest in this. I would imagine they probably sent it to zoning as well.
Right.
All right, so we don't need to take action on that. But that's wonderful. Okay, so old business review and approve bills. I was all ready to submit those all to you, and I'm so confused now by what's been paid and what's not been paid to both Barton and LaJudas and Rodenhausen, Shale, and Polidoro. That I have got to go back to both applicants and unravel these bills. What Tracy has in the clerk's office and what I have are different. And this is where I fall down every time because I'm really bad at this stuff and I don't understand why what she has and why what I have are different. So can we defer this till the 27th?
Betsy,
Yes.
is number E part of D? Resolution.
Oh, I missed establishing escrow procedures. Excuse me. Thank you, Teresa. No, it's quite different. Thank you for backing me up. I was so excited that we were coming to the end. You see what happens. I start jumping around. Did you all see the resolution establishing city escrow procedures? This was something that we've been working on. Jeff Baker, Cheryl Roberts, Victoria, me, the city treasurer, the city clerk, and Craig Haig. There's so many steps to how it was just a jumbled mess, how escrow was being handled. And I kept stumbling on everything and didn't understand it. So in the end, after I sort of kept asking questions, Cheryl assigned Jeff to establish these escrow procedures. I went through them. Tracy Delaney has gone through them carefully. Heather Campbell has gone through them carefully. Craig understands them. I now understand them. And I'm wondering if you all have had an opportunity to read them, and you can ask me any questions about them that you'd like. And this just establishes in form that we can follow. This happens, then that happens, then that happens. And it is going to be a lot easier to administer for everybody.
Can you just, so will the escrow process begin with the filing of the application under these new rules, or like what's the substance of this? Because frankly, I confess I didn't read it. I missed it.
That's okay. Basically what it does is it, when we establish escrow, as we just did for the former OR property, this says how the process is to go from this point until the application has been fully decided and money being returned to the applicant. For instance, I found out there's still escrow money sitting in the Stewart's account. No one at City Hall was ever notified that that was closed and they should return the balance. So this sets up, that's just an example. So this sets up specific procedures for who is responsible for what and how we're going to report to one another and how we're going to handle escrow. And if an escrow account falls below a certain amount, falls below 50% of what they open, that we notify the applicant, say we'll use this wild. We're asking them for $1,500. If their escrow goes below $750, I would notify them and say, oh, you're probably going to have to top up your escrow, or we're not going to be able to continue review. That kind of thing. And this it's a procedural matter of how we handle these. And it's something I could share with an applicant. This is what's expected of you. This is what's expected of us, so that we don't do over.
That all the people that, all of you who have been working on this, I really trust that if this is something, Betsy, that you because you're our chair, if you feel confident in this process that's been developed, then I feel confident in it.
Oh, thank you, Laura. We worked really hard on this. This was a real mess, and I really feel much more comfortable now knowing that we have a process and a way to monitor and how consultants are going to be paid and when they're going to be paid. We've taken, Common Council had to review all our escrow approvals that we had already approved, and then it had to go to the Common Council for their approval. It was crazy. So we've streamlined the process, but we've also assigned responsibility. And I feel like this is something that I can live with and future chairs can live with. It just sets out the process.
Do we need a copy of this?
I sent you one.
What email was that?
Didn't I? Oh my goodness, I've sent you all so many.
It came on the 7th. last week.
Yeah, I didn't see it either.
It's from Betsy Gramkow, and the subject is escrow procedures.
Now we can hold this until the
No,
25th.
that's why I'm saying that if you feel real comfortable with it, and with all the people that have been working on it, I feel very comfortable making a motion that we accept this.
I agree.
Okay, Laura, Larry, any more discussion?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, thank you. And Teresa, thank you for catching me. I would have been so furious with myself when I was writing up my notes. So as I mentioned, I'd really like to defer the bills because they're confusing, and I will really have to unravel this with everybody. But I will have that for you on our October 27th meeting. John, do you have anything to report from the IDA other than
No,
congratulations?
not really. We did ultimately approve the pilot for 620 Union Street. And, the rest is just kind of internal stuff. It was nothing that would have any, that I think would have any feelings with us. We did the financial stuff that we would normally, the financial committee presented their stuff today, but it was just kind of pro forma. That was about it.
Okay.
Yep.
And then as far as HCDPA is concerned, the city's applied for what's called an anti-displacement grant. And it looks like we're in very good position to be awarded this grant, which is $1 million. And it includes someone to actually work very closely with us to make sure that the things that are forcing people to leave Hudson, particularly people that are less well off and people of color, that we really address these issues so that people aren't displaced. And this is actually, it's a really big deal, and it comes with a staff position. If we are looking for a lawyer to look over all the terms and conditions of the grant right now, but we may know, we're supposed to know on the 21st whether or not the city's been awarded this grant.
Great.
It would probably be administered by HCDPA.
Wow.
So that's quite exciting, I think. And we also just reviewed our audit today with our auditor. So we're fixing some things that are a mess there from the 60s and 70s, if you can imagine. We're trying to clean things up that have been carried forward for 50 years, which is very hard to do, but we're giving it our best effort. So if you want to know what I do in my spare time, now you have a window. So that's all I have to report there. And then the last thing, I spoke with Craig Haig last week. He typically gets 10 hard copies of every application, every site plan, the big, huge architectural drawings. And you should, if you go in his office, it's absolutely terrifying because there's a mountain of material there for us for all the different board zoning and historic preservation. And I don't see any reason why we need to have applicants submit 10 hard copies of everything. We absolutely need 3 hard copies because I have to stamp and sign and date 3 hard copies. But I don't think we need 10. Most of them just get thrown away because now we're receiving things digitally. This was the process when we didn't have the opportunity to receive things digitally and everybody had to get a copy of everything. So I'm going to suggest, now, Teresa would like hard copies of everything.
That's because I can't, I have to print it to see it. I print things and I read it later. So, I don't look, and I can't look at my computer while I'm here. If they don't show it to me, I can't refer. I do have another iPad, but I'm not, the iPad and I were not related yet.
You're not friendly, not best friends. So Teresa, that's fine. And we can ask for more application. We can leave it at 10. I just know that I never pick up my copy of it because I look at everything on my computer and I file it all on my computer. So I want to know from the rest of you, if he would like hard copies or not. And then we'll make accommodations depending on what you want.
I would like hard copies.
Yes, I've already.
I would say check to make sure, maybe with Cheryl, to make sure that there's nothing in the law that might have to be revised if we limit the number of hard copies.
It says, Craig and I looked at it, it says
Oh, okay.
triplicate, but I will double check.
Yeah, can't hurt.
Um,
The only time that I would like a hard copy is the big applications. I mean, even we can't, the big drawings that we can't print.
Right.
Even Larry, I think you've mentioned that you wish you had some, when we need the big drawings, seeing them on a computer, no matter what, it's very hard. So if it has a big drawing, there's got to be a better word than big drawing. What would that be, Larry? A
large format.
Thank you. Then I would like that.
So how would I let an applicant know? If they're going to submit large format renderings, we need those in paper as well. But if they're just going to submit their materials digitally, we don't. But does that make sense? Because even, I don't know how.
If everybody else doesn't want the large format, then printed, then I'm fine not doing it. It just.
But well, she does want it, and she will, and we need to get it. So now we need 4. We need 1 for Teresa plus 3 for me, for the city.
Yes.
I don't ever need it in printed format, so I don't have any problems with the computer. So you can agree to buy at least 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
This is a tough one because the reality is that a full drawing set's expensive to print, right? It can cost $50 to $100, right? And so I think that, maybe there's some trigger or something so that they automatically have to, almost like an escrow, right? They automatically have to produce 3, but that we can set up a relationship with Craig where Craig notifies the applicant, when you submit this, you need 5 or whatever, right? Do you follow what I'm saying? So that it's, because the applicant needs to know how many copies of sets they need, and they have to print it out on their dime, right? And so it doesn't work for us to go to Craig and say, Craig, I need a full-size set of this, because he doesn't have it, right? He can't print it.
Correct.
It's expensive. But it seems like moving to a digital submission with on-demand printing makes total sense, right? That if we want 7 copies or 12 copies, we just tell Craig and then it happens. But I don't know how that would actually work. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, the logistics are difficult.
Why don't we do it so that we say 4? This way there's a 3 for you, there's 1 for Teresa, and then if I look at something and go, holy moly, I cannot see this well, or this isn't translating, I'll go borrow 1 of the 3 that go to you.
We can do that, or I can actually, to even be safer, we could have 5, just a standard 5. So there could be 1 for board use, 3 for the city, and 1 for Teresa.
And this way we're doing the same thing with every applicant.
Right.
Because if we say to one applicant, the other applicant 3, I think we should just stay the same. If it was 10 before, we want to reduce it to 5, 8, 7, 6. That's how it should be done.
Okay, so we'll ask for it for 5, 2 for the board. I'll just leave it. I'll leave it very general, so I don't say 1 for Teresa and 1 for the board. 2 for board and 3 for the city. And I'll double check with Cheryl that there's no strange wording anywhere in the code that says we have to have 10.
Well, and maybe it's a standing rule that it's 3 for the board, 3 for you, 2 for the board's review, and additional copies as requested by the board.
Yeah.
And that way, if we go to Craig Craig can go to the app. I mean, that happened to me with HPC. They want, they wanted to take the sets home, right? So I had to go print another 7 sets.
Okay. But this way, we're not putting a burden on applicants to print 10, which is very expensive, and then we don't even pick them up. I mean, that's what's driving me crazy. If you walk into Craig's office, it's just a nightmare.
Now,
and a lot of it's ours.
I have a question. Okay, now that was Cheryl, right? The city's attorney?
Cheryl is the city's attorney, yes.
Was she representing the applicant on the, or at, 259 Union?
No, that's Victoria.
Okay, but Cheryl was there presenting the application. Was she representing the applicant?
No, that wasn't Cheryl.
That was Crystal
That was
Hines.
Crystal.
Oh, she's not the city attorney?
No.
No, they're both blondes and they're both white. Sorry, Lisa.
They all look the same.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah, that was Crystal Hines that yeah, different. Cheryl was on for the Colarusso portion, but she doesn't speak.
Glad I didn't ask her. How could you represent them and us?
And the answer would have been, she can't. All right. So I'll work this up with Craig and double check with Cheryl, and we'll add another little procedure to my quiver, which I'm trying to pull together so that if someone gets hit by a bus, they actually might have some idea what they have to do, because I certainly didn't. All right, board. I think we are good.
Hey, we're done.
I have one item to ask you. I'm sorry. We have Verizon coming up on the 27th.
We do.
We did get an email today from the applicant regarding the date of submission of the application. I would love it if our council could advise. I often date things for when I want them to be submitted, and then I submit them in a different date than I dated it. It's just normal practice. It happens all the time. And
so, Larry, what I did was I reached out to Mike Musso.
Okay.
And he and I have a date for later this week. I couldn't do it today or tomorrow. I was buried. But we're going to speak Thursday about this because I want to understand the shot clock, and I'll loop Victoria in as well. And so I want Mike to explain exactly what this means.
Okay.
And then I'll report back to you all.
Perfect.
I noticed that today too.
I was very distressed when I saw that. But before I got all exercised about it, I just shot off an email to Mike and said, I need to talk to you about this. And he was very, very accommodating. So I'll find out the real skivvy on that. So in October, we have public hearings for 347 Warren, which is back bar. They want to permanently expand, and 119 Columbia, which is Verizon. And I will add the public hearing. Oh no, I don't have to add anything. Nope, that's for November.
I thought that, so I missed the beginning and I'm very sorry. But Columbia Street, the brewery, is that, are we continuing the public hearing through our next meeting on the 27th, or?
No, we closed the public hearing on that, and we've given everybody 10 days for written comment.
Okay.
And it will be on the agenda next meeting, on the 27th, right?
It'll be on the November agenda.
Oh, November, okay.
Oh,
I thought you had mentioned maybe putting it at
on October 27th. Yes, I did.
Yeah, because that should be a pretty quick vote. I mean, that would be nice if we could do that on the 27th.
Yeah. Sorry, you're absolutely right, John. So I will add it to our agenda. It's not a public hearing, so I don't have to notice it. So everything's fine. I'll just put it on the agenda along with the bills, and be able to handle it then. So that should be good. Pretty good. Yeah, we're going to get a lot of public comment, I'm sure. Okay, So thank you all so much. Look, we finished at 5.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
John, that's your job.
I know. Get me out of here.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye and bye.